Hello and welcome back to Verse by Verse, the podcast where we roll up our sleeves and dig into the soil of a single verse to see what treasures we can find. I'm your host, Bible Bob, and I'm here with our all-star team of biblical detectives to say hello, everyone. We've got Definition Dan on the line for our wood origins.
Ready to define and clarify.
Historical Harry is in the studio to paint us a picture of the past.
The past is never past. Glad to be here.
Context Charlie is here to make sure we don't miss the forest for the trees.
It's all about location, location, location.
Structure Steve is ready to geek out over grammar.
Conjunctions are my currency, Bob.
Number Nancy has her calculator polished and ready.
The numbers don't lie.
And of course, Parallel Patricia, here to connect the dots across the canon.
It's all one big, beautiful story.
Alright team, today we are venturing into the Minor Prophets, a section of the Bible that is often, shall we say, a little dusty from neglect. We're landing in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 16. I'll read it for us now. Haggai twice Giston says, When you came to a heap of 20 measures, there were but 10. When you went to a wine vat to draw 50 measures, there were but 20. So right off the bat, it sounds like a very bad day at the farm. A complaint about a poor harvest. But as we know here on Verse by Verse, there's always more going on beneath the surface. Harry, Charlie, set the scene for us. Where and when is this happening?
Absolutely, Bob. This is a fascinating period. We are in Jerusalem, around 520 BS. The Babylonian exile is over. A remnant of the Jewish people, led by figures like Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest, have returned to their homeland after 70 years. You'd think it would be party time, right?
You would, but there's a problem. They returned about 16 years before Haggai starts prophesying, and in that time, they have managed to build lovely, panelled houses for themselves, but the temple of the Lord, the very centre of their worship and national identity, still lies in a heap of ruins.
Exactly. So, God sends the prophet Haggai with a very direct message, which can basically be summed up as consider your ways. Why are you living in nice houses while my house is a wreck? This verse is God reminding them of the consequences of their misplaced priorities.
A powerful reminder indeed. So, this isn't just a random harvest report, it's evidence in a divine case God is building against his people. Let's break down that evidence. The verse begins, when you came to a heap of Steve. What does that opening would tell us?
Well, Bob, that little word when is doing a lot of work. It's not if, it's when. This implies a regular, recurring action. This wasn't their intent to bad day, this was their new, frustrating reality. Every time they went to the harvest pile expecting abundance, they were met with disappointment. It establishes a pattern.
A pattern of disappointment. Got it. Dan, what exactly is this heap they're coming to?
Good question. The Hebrew word here is arima. It specifically means a pile, but in an agricultural context, it almost always refers to a pile of fresh grain on the threshing floor. This is the culmination of a whole season of lapper-booping, sowing, reaping, threshing. This heap represents their final salary, their reward for all their hard work.
So they get to the final payday. This heap expecting, and I quote, 20 measures and Nancy, you're beaming. Let's talk numbers.
Numbers, okay, so they expect 20. 20 is often a number associated with a full period of waiting or trial. Think of Jacob waiting 20 years to finally be free from Laban, or the Israelites' 20 years of oppression under King Jabin. It can represent a full, complete quantity. They were expecting a full harvest.
And a measure here, for grain, is likely an ephah. An ephah is a dry measure, roughly 22 litres, or about half a bushel. So they come expecting about 10 bushels of grain.
They expect 20 measures, a full load, but the verse says there were but 10.
Exactly, a perfect 50 loss. It's not just a little less, it's cut in half. The symmetry of it is brutal. It's so precise, it feels less like a natural bite and more like a deliberate, measured judgment. You expected 20, you get 10, period.
And this immediately makes me think of the covenant curses laid out way back in Deuteronomy 20. Moses warns the people, you will sow much seed in the field, but you will harvest little, because locusts will devour it. And in Leviticus 20, guys, God warns that if they disobey, you will sow your seed in vain, for your enemies will eat it. Haggai is showing them that these ancient warnings are not just theoretical, they are happening right now to them because of their disobedience.
Well, so the first half of the verse is a devastating agricultural audit. Let's move to the second half, which feels very similar. It starts, when you went to a wine vat at Dan. What's a wine vat?
The Hebrew is yekib. This isn't just the barrel you store wine in. The yekib was the entire pressing installation, usually a trough carved out of rock where people would tread the grapes. The juice would then flow into a lower collecting vat. So to go to the yekib is to go to the place of production, where the juice becomes wine. It's a place of hope and future celebration.
And at this place of hope, they were hoping to draw 50 measures, and Nancy, 50.
50. I love this number. It's the number of Jubilee. The number of release and freedom. Every 50th year, debts were cancelled and slaves were set free. They were coming to the wine vat with expectations of celebratory abundance. 50 measures of wine if there's a party.
But, of course, there's a twist. The verse ends, they were but 20.
And this is even worse than the grain. A 50 loss is bad, but this is a 60 loss. They expected 50 and got 20. The math is just heartbreaking. The thing that symbolizes joy, celebration, and freedom is even more severely curtailed than the bread that symbolizes basic subsistence. God is hitting them where it hurts most, their daily bread and their deepest joys.
And Bob, notice the beautiful, painful parallelism in the structure. Clause 1, when you came to X to get Y, you only got Z. Clause 2, when you went to get B, you only got C. This repetition isn't just for poetic flair, it's meant to feel relentless. It drives home the message that no matter what part of their economy they turned to, grain or grapes, food or drink, the result was the same: frustrating, inexplicable, backbreaking lack.
So, pulling this all together, we have the people of God, back in the promised land, working hard but getting less than half of what they expect. Context, Charlie, remind us one more time of the explicit reason God gives for this.
Haggai couldn't be clearer. Just a few verses earlier, in chapter 1, verse 9, God says, "You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, I blew away. Why? Because of my house, which remains a ruin. While each of you is busy with your own house." This verse, twice kissed, isn't the accusation it's exhibit of.
And the theme of a devouring or unproductive economy because of spiritual neglect echoes forward into the prophet Malachi. In Malachi 3, God accuses the people of robbing him by withholding their tithes and offerings. He says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Haggai is showing the reverse of that promise. The storehouse at Temple is empty and in ruins, so their personal storehouses are also mysteriously emptying.
That's a powerful connection. They have neglected the house of God, the place of his presence, and the result is this tangible, frustrating emptiness in their own lives. Is there any messianic hope to be found in a verse about such lack? This feels like a good place to bring in a prophetic perspective. Seems we're having trouble reaching prophecy polar today. I can take a stab at it. In the Old Testament, the temple was the focal point of God's presence on earth. The problem in Haggai is that the people had abandoned the center. The lack they experienced in the grain and wine was a physical manifestation of a spiritual void. This points us directly to Jesus. In the New Testament, Jesus declares himself to be the true temple. He says in John chapter 2, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days," referring to his own body. Here's the ultimate meeting place between God and humanity. And think about what he does. He is the one who provides true abundance. In this verse in Haggai, they go to the wine vat and find lack. But at the wedding in Cana, Jesus takes plain water and turns it into the best wine, in overflowing abundance. In Haggai, they go to the heap of grain and find it cut in half. But Jesus takes 5 loaves and feeds 5,000. With 12 baskets of leftovers, he calls himself the bread of life and the true vine. So Haggai Twiskiston, in its stark depiction of lack, becomes a signpost. It shows us that when we prioritize our own paneled house, our own comfort, our own ambition averts the presence of God, the result is emptiness. But when we turn to the true temple, Jesus Christ, we find a spiritual abundance that can never be diminished. The curse of not enough is broken by the grace of more than enough found in him. And that is the beautiful, hope-filled picture hidden within a verse about a disappointing harvest. What a journey. Great work today, team. Thanks to Definition Dan, Historical Harry, Context Charlie, Structure Steve, Number Nancy, Unparalleled Patricia. And thank you for tuning into Verse by Verse. Join us next time as we pick another verse and discover the world of truth hidden inside. Until then, keep digging.